good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. And thank you for joining Devo today to talk about automation of alert triage to improve your SOC performance. I'll be your presenter today. My name is Michael McGinnis. I'm a senior security architect for Devo. Been in IT security for over 20 years, been in the SIM space for over 10. Really, if you've watched any of my previous webinars, I'm really excited. I think you're going to get a lot out of today's content. So let's just jump right into it, and we'll get started here as I click to the next one, where we're going to talk about alert fatigue. So, as you all know, with alert fatigue, it's tiresome. In most SOCs, there's about an 80 to 90% generation of alerts that never get looked at. Mean time to resolution, this affects it. And this is a problem because, as we all know, what if that low and slow behavior, those small alerts, they could mean something more. And you don't have enough of an audit trail to say why an alert was closed on some of these smaller ones. And across every industry, it does not matter what. It could be financial, healthcare, it does not matter. All SOCs are facing the same alert fatigue, and it's driven by a couple things. First one is signal to noise ratio. About 80 to 95%, I would say, or actually the industry says, alerts aren't incidents. They're just that. They're just, heads up. And then you get this overwhelming, this backlog volume of alerts. It's a never-ending thing. You close one, 10 open up. And then depending on, we're all human. Depending on who's looking at it, there's just this inconsistency of reviewing the alerts and what needs to be escalated up to our tier 2, tier 3 support guys. So really, if you think about it, there's just that consistent playbook, even as you draw them out for individuals, may not all have the same effect. But if you think about it, a lot of this sounds familiar to you. So let's just talk about how to master alert triage. I know it's kind of a loaded term, a loaded, statement, I should say, of how one would master alert triage. But let's take this from a very high level. This is a strategy that I've recommended and deployed in numerous places. The first thing, let's define what the success is. The metrics. Measure where you are today. Let's hit the pause button. Let's take a picture. Let's look and see where everything is. That's everything from vulnerabilities to endpoints to firewall alerts, access requests, all of those. Then, this is what the strategy that I personally am a big fan of is let's take that one alert or that group of type of alerts that are the most noisy. Let's just tackle that. Let's go after it. Maybe it's failed logins for an expired service account. Maybe it's emails being blocked, something like that. And let's go out there and let's see how many are firing over the last 30 to 90 days. See what's really making that noise generate. Now let's go ahead and define a playbook of how we're going to respond, for triaging and responding to that alert. So what we want to do is not necessarily go in there by hand, but let's see if we can code this out. Go in, let's see if we can simplify this process. And then let's build onto those metrics and see what kind of level of detail we can get. Maybe get some reporting out of it. Figure out what kind of information we can glean out of this to make these incidents, make these alerts to validate that we aren't talking about incidents. And finally, the fifth one, and this is where we're going to be talking majority about today, is let's just automate these playbooks. Let's get the human element. Let's get our analysts doing true actual work as opposed to cleanup, and automate this process of these noisy alerts. So I want to talk a little bit here about the automation of alerting. So let's say, the problem statement is right off the bat is alert volume is just overwhelming. It is consuming it's consuming 1, 2, maybe even 3 FTE's entire job responsibility. One thing that we're not thinking about when, if it's consuming that much of an FTE's time and availability, they're also not growing. They're sitting there spinning wheels, trying to get out of a ditch. They're not learning. They're not growing. They're not, developing better skills. So this is where SOAR really just steps up, and this is what SOAR was originally designed for. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to automate the initial review of 100% of alerts. And how we're going to do that? Using playbooks. So what we're going to do is we're going to aggregate the alerts using fields, IP addresses, usernames, machine IDs, locations, subnets, all that information. And then we're going to go ahead and take those cases or assign by priority. So, if it's alerting on usernames, we're going to assign that maybe to my identity and access team. Maybe that's not in security. Let's go ahead and make those the people that are responsible for those solutions responsible for the triage of these alerts. And then we're also going to put in there not just what it is causing an alert, but an explanation of why we also think that this is not a true positive or a false positive, I should say. This is really critical. Most solutions will tell you why something is fired. Maybe we should be focusing in on why the alert shouldn't have fired. So we're going to move from our, the standard. We're going to go actually into a different, move of vision and strategy in here. We're going to go to a metrics-driven performance of security. So let's take a look, over our last 7 days, for example. Let's say that, there were, almost 2,000 alerts generated. And out of those, there's 704 cases that made it, alerts that made it to a case. And that out of those 704, we got 66 total cases. Those numbers might seem high, but let's think about it. That's actually a 96% reduction of what analysts must triage, of what the analysts must triage. That's huge. We're talking about 97% increase in performance of our analysts. Now let's go ahead and talk about the automation of context into every case. This is critical once again. Problem is, cases don't have sufficient context. It's one thing, alerts sometimes have context, alerts sometimes don't have context. But here's where SOAR, especially Devo SOAR, is going to really differentiate itself. So what we can do is bring in the contextual data into those cases. So all alerts that were created into this case will be linked together. What those linking of alerts is going to do is allow to start building context around it. Let's go back to an example of failed logins. Let's say, service account ABC is generating 1,000 alerts. As opposed, that's just one case of 1,000 alerts and being in one case. If you can link those all together, it makes the story and the issue much clearer to anybody reviewing it. And then we're also going to go ahead and take current cases that are automatically correlated by the username, the IP address, and link similar cases. So not just the one individual case that you're currently looking at. Let's allow our analysts to go ahead and review what is done in the past. We could visualize this through graphing. We could do this through any sort of visualization that is needed. And then we can even automate it further so that these remediation steps are even, that we're decreasing all that time on that mean time to resolve all these issues. So let's take a quick look in here. This is actually an example of a case. And you'll see what's in here. The who, what, why, and where, right here. But this is what is more critical, in my opinion, of what a case should have and the why not. This is giving that analyst a visualization or context around why this might not be a true positive. Maybe it is something like, such as a bad password. Maybe this is not a security incident. Maybe this is just a logging issue. It could be, hey, the logging's turned up too much, or maybe just an ACL or a GPO, something set incorrectly that we could do, or that we could resolve quickly, I should say. Can't talk. You'll notice that was, actually, let me go back one slide. You'll notice over here we've got all these different tasks. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight them here. These tasks here in your SOAR are doing all that different work for you. So we're going to go ahead, for example, and automatically, get the external IP and determine the organization to see where it's at. Now, some alerts are especially chatty. We've first of all already discussed this. We have, it's pretty obvious from anybody watching this right now that some alerts just are chattier than others. Depends on the logging level, depends on the intelligence, depends on the triggering mechanism. So what if, let's say 98% of these, a reduction of alerts would do, is if we put these and we automate it, we can get 10 down. That means we're having just 10 cases of alert triage that we have to focus on, as opposed to having to work, almost 10,000 cases. So let's just take a quick example, or look at an example of a common scenario that everybody's dealt with in the security world. It's probably the most common one that I've had to deal with as well, which is phishing. We all know what phishing is. I could sit here, I could do a 5-part series just on phishing. But let's just talk about the remediation of phishing through SOAR automation. So the problem with... Hold on, everybody. I apologize. I'm having issues with my audio. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. My apologies. Okay. So phishing playbooks, for example, let's just say that the steps are to retrieve IOCs, to pull the reputational info from Fish Tank or, any other solutions that are out there. We'll go ahead and execute the initial triage and risk scoring. Then Devo, what it's going to do is create a message to send it to the analyst. So at this point, what is happening for the user or for the analyst is all those initial steps are taken care of. We're talking hours upon hours of time that is saved for that analyst. Now, not only are they able to get a better remediation of the issue, but we're talking about basic processing, going and connecting somewhere, getting information, getting, details such as the IP address. Maybe this is not a phishing attempt. Maybe it's a legitimate email. Speeding up business production within the organization. And we're able to do all this to automate this for you. Main advantages of all this: faster triage time for phishing, which can be very critical to an organization, as well as no more of having to go to multiple products, having multiple accesses, multiple responses into different solutions. Single pane of glass. So how are we going to do this with, the log of getting all these logs in? So it's real straightforward. So Devo is going to pull the logs from your local SIM, preferably Devo, of course, but, Devo SOAR is SIM agnostic. We're going to go ahead and create use cases, configuration queries, and retrieve them from your CMDB if you have one. We'll go ahead and drill down queries that are executed related to events. So essentially, we're going to do all the work in the SIM itself. We're going to go ahead and get a reputation from external services for validation. So it's not just, our solution that's validating the reputation scores of the incident. And then we're going to go through standard escalation protocols that are established by you, the customer. They're not set by us. These are set by you. That's critical. That way, you don't have to fit to our solution. Our solution fits to your organization. And then, of course, alert information that is aggregated using top-like tables and payloads. What this is going to do is take all that contextual information, such as, who, if username is XYZ, who is that actual user? What is their location? What is that, what is the device that they're using? What is all of that top level information that is critical to know who, what, and why, we're going to pull that in automatically for you. All this is done before the ticket is even created and a notification is sent out by email. Let's talk about the advantage of this. We're talking about low severity of alerts getting automatically processed. These are things that maybe don't, that are, let's just call them table stakes, stuff that is everything, everyday tasks that you're actually empowering your full-time employees to actually take advantage of and get them to do actual risk analysis and taking risk off the organization. It allows you to focus almost exclusively on your medium and high priority alerts. That way you can actually be much more proactive on actual threats within your organization. And really, I work for a SIM vendor. It's really, you don't need, this is kind of shocking information, but this allows you to really stay out of your SIM a lot more. Allows you to really just use it what it's for and let the SOAR take care of that low-level alerting that is generated from your SIM. And finally, and this is the most critical one, it lowers your mean time to resolution. I mean, that's what we're all here for. That's why we're on this webinar. That's why we're here. And that's what we want to take care of. And that's why I'm here talking to you about this thing. So with that said, I have time to take a few questions and maybe give you guys some answers. Go ahead and pull these up. Okay, I got a question on integrations. Absolutely. So thank you for that. So the integrations within any store, especially with Devo Store, are built around API calls. Therefore, let's think of it this way: if your store is the way your store is going to connect to other solutions is it's going to take advantage of the underlying APIs that are provided by those commercially off-the-shelf products. Additionally, that's also how it should be pulling from your SIM. Your SOAR should be of all your security suites of solutions, your SOAR should absolutely be the most set and forget type of product. Integration should be seamless. You shouldn't be in there. It should be a low-code approach, but with the flexibility to allow you the ability to actually create custom connections if necessary, especially for homegrown solutions. I've got another question here about development of playbook. Oh, okay, I understand this. Okay, no, I get this question. All right, so the question is, if I'm understanding this correctly, how do you get started on a playbook? So playbook creation is pretty straightforward. I'm actually going to see if the solution will let me share out. It will. Oh, look at that. All right, let me go ahead and pull out my playbooks. So playbook creation is pretty straightforward. Create a new playbook, and you just simply connect it to your SIM, connect it to any tool. Once you've done that, what will typically happen is especially in Devo's solution, is we're going to go ahead and basically tell you, okay, this is what you can do. So it starts that way. It's very straightforward on how to get them. Additionally, let me see if this will let me share it. Go ahead and let me try one more. Not used to the solution that I'm using right here. And this is what essentially a playbook will end up looking like. It's a low-code approach, like I mentioned. Very straightforward. Observe emails from Fishbowl. Download the emails. Get the email attachments. All this information. Get it combined. Create a case. Create these tasks. Join them. Give me some output. Pretty straightforward. All right. I got another question I just saw come through. There we go. Okay. Are SMEs available to assist with the playbook creation if you're not familiar? Absolutely. Myself being one,
SMEs, that's really what we do. If your company allows Slack, you can have direct access to SMEs on demand, as well as, I believe, the turnaround process the SLA is at a minimum 24 hours. I think that's the longest SLA. So absolutely, you will have direct access to SMEs to do this. Additionally, we have a whole use case library that has already pre-built that you can use as templates, of course, to build them. I've been creating playbooks for Demisto, Phantom, several years ago. Splunk. Why should I use Devos? Honestly, the main difference that I've really come across with Devo SOAR versus the other solutions out there is it's pretty agnostic. We're talking a low-code approach, which others do, of course, have, but we are actually able to give you integrations with any solution that is out there. The main differentiator, too, is our scalability. We have we are actually, if you're running one playbook, 10 playbooks, or 1,000 playbooks, the main thing is that everything is auto-scaled. So you don't, let's say that one playbook kicks off, but it's got 1,000 tasks to run. It's intelligent enough to expand those resources to where you will have zero degradation of any performance on those playbooks. So, with that said, I'm at my time. I do appreciate everybody joining with me today. Apologize for the audio difficulties in the middle there. It was weird. And I will see you guys on my next webinar, and I look forward to reaching out and talking to everybody in the future. Have a great day. Bye-bye.